Once again, it's the Integrateness Podcast with Jason and Jolene. Ha, got it right this time. I'm Jason.
I'm Jolene.
Oh, gee.
Forgive me.
Yeah, last week's topic, really good conversations around forgiveness. This week, we're talking about something a little lighter, and that's mentorship. Because as we go through different parts of our lives, we are either mentored by someone, and then once you kind of get deeper in, you find yourself in roles of mentoring other people. And that can be done professionally, through work, or personally, or through a sport, or just some other activity. Have you mentored people, Jolene? You must have in your line of work.
Every year I take a master's student to mentor, and it's always this really beautiful reciprocal relationship. So I have done that since I think I started taking students when I was like 23, 24,
Wow.
Which you can imagine for a 40-year-old student having me as their supervisor was kind of a trip. There were some instances that those people, one person actually I only really had an issue with. Everyone else was, again, our reputation that we build in the industry really isn't age specific, right?
Never.
But yeah, so I always do because I just think it's such a wonderful way to keep myself growing and accountable. And I love learning. I'm constantly learning, right? And I just think there's so much value outside of the books that we can teach and expand in real life time, right?
That's
so yes,
great.
Every year I take a master's student. It used to be bachelor's, now it's master's students. And I think you and we're mentoring people through this podcast.
Oh, for sure. And no one, it's funny when you do something like this, you don't think about that.
No.
At all. Like the people who are listening, especially when it's like this kind of podcast.
Yeah.
People are listening because they want to learn something or take in information. When we started doing this, I never thought of that.
No, we just wanted to share information, to give people more tools to make changes in their life in often ways I see in my office, but in the ways we have in real life.
Yeah.
Like you really wanted to tell your story
and
be like, I'm sure there's other men who need to put all these pieces together to kind of free themselves from the shackles of what we struggle with, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's really interesting too, because in my I Am the One workshop, that's one of the first things we do in the first week is we look at like, who are our idols? Who are the people that have mentored us? Who are the people we look up to? And how has that shaped where we're going in life, right? And this can be celebrities, it can be sports stars, it can be real life people who have legitimately kind of taken us under their wing in a sense. And it's about what impact has that person had on the decisions you make in your life, the character you're building of yourself and all those things. And then often, especially of course in my journey of, I think just even being a very social individual, a very compassionate individual in high school and definitely in leadership roles and being a valedictorian, I think I naturally was in mentorship roles there. But also the story of my dad's death became a story of mentorship for others. And I remind people that when they're in their healing journeys and in their grief journeys, that one day, the same way maybe you're looking to me in my grief story, you're going to be offering your grief story, your healing story. This happens a lot in like postpartum depression or motherhood stories in general or parenthood stories. It happens in like divorce, right? I remember supporting some women through divorce in my practice thinking like, wow, this is really not an area of specialty I would have identified for myself. But there was this period of time I had like 3-4 women who were going through profound changes post-divorce. And I was almost just kind of rolling through it using a lot of transferable skills and lots of EMDR basis to help them through that. But I later reflected on it. Again, we talked last week about how life is in retrospect. I looked back and thought, you know what? I may have needed them more than they needed me because their stories of resilience and the women they became after that journey is exactly what I anchored into on my journey.
Well, and that's a really good point to bring up, Jolene, because when we mentor someone else, it is a two-way street. Mm-hmm. We're always learning from others. We do that a lot in boxing. Because when a new student would come on, we were assigned to then partner up with that new student and walk them through drills and stuff like that. But it's also reminding you of all the things you've just learned.
Absolutely.
Right, and putting it into practice. I thought that was really, really cool. And that's when I really started understanding mentorship and how it worked. When I did that like 9 years ago, started boxing.
Yeah, and it's really cool to then credit somebody on their experience and their journey. So I did share that with some of the women after, when they learned a bit more about my journey later on, because of course I talk about it openly here and stuff. And I said, I'm like, I don't know if you know, but like I learned so much and gained hope for my own journey based on what I witnessed your journey to be. And they were like, what?
Yeah.
And it was profound for them. And I said, absolutely. Look at what you accomplished and look at the woman you've become in the last year and a half. Like, to watch that unfold in front of my eyes gave me hope that like it's entirely possible in so many ways where I may have doubted myself or something. Yeah, it was
That's
really
cool.
profound. It
That's
was
cool.
very cool. And I felt it's so important for us to give that feedback to people, right? Because often we're just like so focused on that movement forward or just literally like white knuckling it through that once we're in that safe zone, it's like, wow, people witnessed me through that, Yeah. And I mean, even through dance, like I mentored, like I taught younger kids. And as an older person in the activity, like you said, you become a mentor. And we were just talking about this because I applied for a storm billet thinking that it would be really great for my son in particular to have a mentor like that, just to witness, right? And to look up to and to have a part of his life more consistently in that kind of way. I thought that'd be a really cool thing to offer my family, right?
Well, it's funny too because we don't, as parents, we don't think about it, but we're constantly mentoring our children. Like it's a constant. We call it parenting, but it's just a form of mentorship.
Yeah, right now, right? We're recording, and I have a little person coloring at the table behind us, and
Exactly.
and she's witnessing what's happening when mom works and what that
Yeah.
looks like, and they're seeing us and our work ethic at times, and where we sacrifice some things, or where we really screw up
Yep.
other areas, right? Like they witness us all the time through that.
Yeah, and they're learning every single step of the way, right?
Yeah, it was really cool because when you came to do that investigation at my house not that long ago, we reflected on that because it was a young new reporter who was coming to do a story for you. And I was like, Jay, this was you years ago. And the guy was like, oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, because he was someone, Josh was his
Yes.
name, just out of journalism school, first journalism job at Castanet. And of course, as people know now, I hunt ghosts as part of a ghost hunting team. And he wanted to do a Halloween story about ghost hunting. So the editor at Castanet knew me and reached out. And so Josh reached out and followed. And yeah, that was like, one of his first assignments, which, I mean, I remember when I was fresh out of journalism school, like school really doesn't prepare you for the realities of anything.
No.
Anything, even if it's like a very focused course like journalism or say social work
Yeah.
or counseling, the reality is so different because those course curriculums were put together years ago. The industry's changed so quickly. So you could see this Josh guy just learning as he went. And it was kind of neat to do that without like feeling like you're directly like, okay, kid, now you got to do this and this and this, but just being a presence to help.
Yeah. Sometimes just being a really good client or a really good interviewee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually one of the things that I really liked when you first reached out to me to interview me a couple times. And then when you asked to do the podcast, I remember how much I enjoyed those interviews. They were so easy. Like you were very good at how you conducted the conversation, and I got really inspired. And yeah, so those things, how you lead that conversation makes such a difference. And how you led, like, okay, here, we'll go there. What else do you need? Oh, you might need this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've done it before.
Yeah.
So it's easier then to kind of, but you don't have to say, all right, now you have to do this. It's like, well, what do you think you need left? Or what's left? What more do you want?
Yeah, totally.
Right? And interviewing is a whole different. It was funny. I always say this. As a journalist, 95% of your job is the interview. It really is. It's getting that information. The 5%, the writing it, that's easy once you've got the info. And in my 2 years, actually became like 5 years of journalism school, because I got a job after my first year, so I had to finish it part-time. There was only 1 hour of one class dedicated to interviewing.
Wow. And it's very similar with social work and different like counseling type programs, right? Like so much of it is theory. But that's why, in these master's practicums and stuff, some of these gals are with me for like 8 months, 2 days a week kind of thing. And I think mine was like full time for 3.5, 4 months or something, right? And it's interesting because you can learn the theory of everything, but you don't ever learn the tasks of the job. And the tasks are what really define how your
Well,
job rolls out for
how
you.
you talk to that other person, how comfortable you
Absolutely.
make them in your presence.
Yeah.
I've been to bad therapists who just like, you just don't, I don't want to talk to you, go away. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like that's the ability to connect with someone else, and like your line of work and my previous line of work is the most important part.
Absolutely. So if you think about like mentors in your life, I know we've all reflected on some. You know, I had Venus, who was an old math teacher who took me under his wing, who is now like pseudo grandparents to my kids, and just really good family friends, right? For you, Jay, you talk about your old instructor, your taekwondo instructor, or your boxing instructor, right? So we have these profound people in our lives, but I always love, and I like talking about this because you know, when we talk about life purpose and what we're here for and where our work makes a difference, you know, I never want to forget the people who always question or may often question their existence when they're like, I work at the corner store, or, you know, I clean offices at such and such, or, and it's like, you are so valuable. You have no idea, right? So the bus drivers, do we know how valuable they really are to the kids at school, right? How about the lady that runs the corner store that the kids go to all the time, right? Or how about the person who comes in and cleans the office and gets to know some of the staff that are there, what their needs are, right? The chambermaids that are constantly going in, keeping people's lives comfortable, all of these things, right? Every single person in this world is a very important piece of a puzzle that impacts why someone else can do what they can do.
Or has a good day or a bad day. Like,
Yeah.
how often have you kind of on the way home from work or late at night realize you need something from the grocery store?
Yeah.
So you don't want to go to the grocery store, but you have to go to the grocery store. So you go. So you're already in kind of a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's working that till can make or break that moment.
Oh my God, yes.
And I've had people break it, and I've had people make it. And I think that's an important thing when you're in those jobs to understand, is that you do have a huge impact on someone else.
Yeah, and you remember, we know we went through this at COVID, what were considered essential services.
And it was the grocery store clerk.
Grocery and liquor stores,
and liquor store.
Isn't that
Thank
ridiculous?
You so much, it was ridiculous.
My God.
It was ridiculous.
Right?
But
That's a whole nother
conversation. I wouldn't have made it through COVID without that.
Right? But you think about those, like finally they got recognition in a way that like your job is the most important one we need right now. Like people were working through midnight. They were trying to stock. The truck drivers finally got recognition.
Yeah, finally, right?
The unseen, like the unseen behind the scenes people, right? It's just like when you go to a theater production, like where's the music? You know, the lighting and the backstage set, like why aren't they running out in front, you know?
Yeah, at
like
the end.
Holy man, they make that show, you know? Yeah, especially when you go to some of these phenomenal productions and stuff. Yeah, so thinking about that in terms of like what are like who are people that have influenced your life in those ways and maybe don't even know that they were mentors to you. Like I don't know if people have come to you, but I've had people randomly, like even through Instagram, tell me like, I've been following you for 2 years and you have no idea how much like change I've made in my life and this. And I was like, wow, that's exactly why I run this page. Like, and that just validated so much of why I do what I do in that platform, right?
Well, yeah, and we don't think about that either. We use it to promote stuff that we do or whatever, or just to, I don't know, some people put it to put up cat memes. But, you know, I guess there are people who do watch. Like I remember once, it was actually, I was going for my daily walk. It was about 3 years ago when I was doing a lot of work in narrations up at joeblow.com, and where we want to believe started. And I was going for a walk, you know, going to be down towards your place on Rosewood. And there's this guy working on his car in the driveway. He kind of looks up and he sees me, and then he kind of looks down, and then he looks up again, and he kind of goes, I really love your Joe Blow stuff.
Amazing.
And I'm like, thanks. It was like a dude, like, you know, a block down from where I live.
Wow.
And that felt pretty good, actually.
That's cool.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Right?
And like, honestly, anytime you guys are sharing our podcast and you tell us that you listened to it or you loved last week's episode, like, we love that, right? And then now, when you're talking about that in the lunchroom, when you're talking, you know, even this happened with my workshop, right? One of my gals was like, oh my God, my boss like I was telling my boss about it and she wants to do your workshop now, right? You're now being a mentor to them in a sense. You are leading by example. You are giving opportunity for them to now take that information, them to make change, them to initiate change, right? It's the whole domino effect. And we mentor through how we live our lives,
Yeah.
really how we conduct ourselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's coming back to being the parent thing. That also applies to like everyone else you come across
Yeah.
in life.
It's true.
So don't be a dick.
Sometimes you have to.
Sometimes
though.
you have
Yeah.
to, though. But I mean,
Right?
there's been times where I've had it. And this goes back to forgiveness periods, like especially like we said after like my dad died and stuff like that, where I know I was an a-hole, like 24/7. Right? I could clear hallways just by walking down with
Yeah.
the look on my face.
Yeah.
And I look back at that and I was like, well, what did that serve?
Yeah.
You know, and then how did that affect other people around me?
That
And then
served you
know,
well because you were an introvert and you were like,
that
get
just-
the F away.
Yeah, it did. It did
right?
in that sense, but I know I treated people poorly
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Now
Yeah.
I think a more friendly introvert.
Yeah, exactly. You're not so afraid to let people in. But that actually brings up a really great point because not all mentorship is meant for good.
This is true.
So we can think of a lot of different scenarios in this world, in this country, maybe in your kid's school, in your workplace, where mentorship isn't innately meant for good or done by kind people.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a whole...
Mean Girls story.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
You've
yeah.
got
we see
Mean
that.
Girls. You've got, like religious and political leadership.
Yeah.
You've got all sorts of things. So remember, like, again, and really, I think one of the definitions about like mentor was it is a like an educated and trusted leader or
Yeah.
educated and like something, right? So really thinking about the power of mentorship and how it can be used for good or for bad.
Well, look at Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, well, that's
He
exactly
was,
it.
to
right?
many a mentor, but what he was preaching wasn't the right way
Yeah.
to go about it, right?
And what's the intention behind the mentorship, right? Are you mentoring because you want to equip other people with the same kind of skill set and the ability to move forward and grow in the same ways you have been and pass down all the things you've learned so they don't have to learn for themselves in a sense?
Yep.
And it becomes, like unwritten history, almost like the like verbal history,
Yep.
right? Or like story told history. But or is it so that you can gain power?
Yep. Yeah, I think, and this could be a good future episode.
Yeah.
I think almost anything can be weaponized.
Yes.
Almost any emotion, anything can be, and that's where we've seen examples, with like cults,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like Helter Skelter, all that kind of stuff, where it's someone's teaching someone something, but it's not for good purposes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The terrorism,
Yeah.
terrorists, like, I mean, wow, you can go on and on and on.
Oh, totally. And
Yeah.
just grooming individuals for those things. Grooming, that is a form of mentorship.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Very interesting. So hate to throw a dark note in there, right? But it's the reality, right?
It is.
And really ask yourself, like, scan your life a little bit. Like, who am I a mentor to? How do I view that role of mentorship? Like, maybe you've never seen yourself as a mentor before, and some of the things we've listed today actually demonstrate, holy shit, you are. And simply, like, if you're in a job where you have more experience with something, I mean, this happens. I even just think, like, even on our hockey, on our hockey team, we've got, like, we're all volunteering for things, and it's like, okay, well, what parent has actually done scorekeeping yet? Okay, well, now you're going to mentor the next person who hasn't done it yet. Even if you've only done it one time, you are the mentor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and there is, like, we acquire these roles everywhere in our life simply because maybe we have previous experience or transferable experience there. And really credit yourself, like actually label it as that, because I think we take the role more seriously. We can do a better job when we actually realize the impact of what we're doing. And I think that there is this really empowering place to be, and there can be a like validation of who you are, what you know.
Yeah, no,
And what you've been through. Like, and I love that when I do like suicide awareness events and stuff, and I ask for families to tell their story, and they source something within themselves and validate their story in ways that they never even thought was worthy of it. So it's a big self-worth thing as well.
Oh, huge a self-worth thing, a healing thing, and an empowering thing.
Yeah, what I do matters,
Yeah.
and it's actually a tangible thing to be worthy of being passed down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, true.
Yeah, it becomes like an unspoken heirloom, right? Like, so the really valuable china that grandma passed down, or the special antique gun that dad might have passed down or something, or grandpa, that is what our knowledge is when we can pass that down,
Yeah.
right? Like our experience, our knowledge, it's so rich. And wouldn't it be so wild to just, it is a shame because I think that happens a lot actually, is where that almost gets wasted at the end of a lifetime if there was nobody to pass it along to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, and I think that I've seen that happen with certain people. And it is a shame, right? And sometimes it hasn't happened because that person just wasn't the right person to pass it on. Like, you know what I mean? They didn't endear themselves to others. They were just kind of bitter, miserable people.
Or if there weren't trustworthy people to pass that knowledge on to, like maybe
right?
somebody's got like a loaded weapon inside their mind of the things that they are able to do, and they're like, I cannot pass this on to the wrong person. I would rather die knowing this than pass it on to the wrong person.
Who then use it for the wrong
and for me, you know, I've always been so invested in the field of helping people that's why I take on supervision and mentorship roles, is because I want to enhance the field and make sure more of like, my way of practicing gets out there rather than, you know, other less, I don't know, legitimate or desirable or whatever ways of practice, right? So that's also my way of ensuring different change in the future and how to the collective I can offer more, right? And I don't intend to retire. I intend to always somewhat be mentoring in the field somehow, or making, you know, continued ripples in the world that way, right?
So even when you're done, say, running your own practice, you can still you can be a
Oh,
consultant, you
totally.
can just tons of things that can still be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we have the gifts that we have in the work that we do, it's really brilliant to find other people who can take that. You know, like I think of Mary, who I joined her practice, and it was kind of her little baby to begin with, the grief practice in Kamloops. And I am forever grateful for her mentorship in order to help me flourish to where I've gotten to.
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
All right. Well, that brings us to a close of another episode. Glad we took it back from that dark place it went there for a little while.
Right?
And ended on a positive note.
I am guaranteed to take it to those places.
Well, you have to, because it's not everything is roses.
Yes, true.
Right?
We got the thorns.
There's lots of thorns. Leave any comment in the comment section. Allow myself to introduce myself. We're back next week with your next favorite episode. Until then, I'm Jason.
I'm Jolene.
Talk soon.